Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. We bring the science of attachment and emotional connection with insight from the last 20 years to share how you can overcome conflict issues at work and build strong team relationships, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Leader in You podcast brought to you by EMC Leaders. My name is Polina, and I'm so excited to be back co-hosting this podcast with the amazing Dr. Lola Gershfeld.
Hello, Polina, and hello, everyone. So happy to be here after a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We hope you enjoyed yourself, and we're so excited to be here with you today.
And we have a very, very special guest today on our show. She comes to us, well, I was going to say from Hawaii, but no longer from Hawaii. But she is a young entrepreneur. She's 16 years old, and she is a CEO of her own company, plus an influencer. Welcome, Elli. She also happens to be my daughter and Dr. Lola's granddaughter. Welcome,
Yay.
Elli, to the show.
Hi, guys. Thank you.
So we're so excited to have you here, Elli. So we wanted to bring Elli on to the podcast today because we wanted to interview her. Elli has been using the EMC process in her life, in her relationships, personal and business relationships for almost 7 years, 7 years now. And we wanted to interview her and get her perspective. Typically, for those of you who are listening, you're used to our guests being adults and also people in all different kinds of fields of expertise. But today we wanted to change it up also because how incredible is it to have opportunity to have a 16-year-old on the show that has experience in this, where most adults can't even articulate their emotions and, express their feelings in the workplace. But we have an expert here with us today.
About 7 years ago, my parents split up and we all moved to Hawaii, me and my 4 siblings, the 5 of us, and both my parents. And it was a very difficult time for me, especially because having your parents together and then not suddenly. And when you were younger, it's like you don't really understand the concept of divorce. So it was very difficult for me, and I had a very difficult relationship with my mom and all my siblings. And then we started doing therapy, but not like the normal one. We started doing like emotionally focused therapy, and that just like changed my life. Every time someone asks me on social media, how are you so confident? How do you have such good relationships with your family? I always say it's therapy because I don't think I would be where I am today without it. So I started doing like social media about a year ago. We were just posting on my mom's account for like memory book so we can go back in time and look and see what we did when we were younger. And then some videos started going viral, and I took that opportunity to start making my own videos, and we quickly grew, and now we're back in California doing the influencer dream.
And tell us about your company, Tan & Beach.
Okay, yes. So about a year ago, like November, December of 2024, I was driving in the car with my mom, and I was like, I love being tan. I just never want to be pale, but I don't use like any products to help me tan, and I want to get the most out of the sun I can if possible. And so I started trying to use tanning oils, but every time I'd buy them, it's like chemicals or ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. And then one thing I thought of, coconut oil. You use that to cook food and it makes it nice and crispy and brown, but it's also really good for your skin. And so when we use like essential oils on our skin, we use coconut oil as well. So I was like, let me try and put coconut oil all over my body and lay out in the sun, so maybe I can like cook like I'm on the stove. So I put coconut oil all over my body, and I lay out, and I was like, wow, like this actually works. Like I got like 10 times more tan, but the smell was like interesting. I mean, it tasted like I was being fried on like a pan and it smelled like that. And I had to buy like big jugs of it. I couldn't get a little bottle and carry it around with me. So that made me think, oh, maybe I should make something myself. But before that, ever since I lived in Hawaii, I loved going shelling. Like I loved diving for shells. I loved looking at the beach for shells. And I had this humongous collection of shells. And I started making jewelry out of them because I could never find the perfect necklace or the perfect bracelets or the perfect earrings. And so I made it myself. And everyone in my comments were like, where did you get that necklace? Where did you get that earring? So my mom and I started making it.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience working with other influencers and just different people for your business, along with like your social media business as well. And you've grown so much. Am I correct to say you have like over 450,000 followers across platforms? So tell us, do you have like an instance where you can share maybe a difficult situation that you had with another influencer or a business agreement or a deal that didn't work or there was some sort of conflict? And then how did the emotionally connected process work in your favor to help you either deal with the conflict, deal with the problem, communicate what was going on, resolve things effectively, or how did it help you maybe regulate your own experience in dealing with difficult situations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the thing is with doing social media is everything is public. So if you have an argument with another influencer, it's all online, so the whole world can see it. So when I originally moved to California about 3 months ago, there was a few influencers. I mean, everyone was talking about, oh, this Hawaii girl's now back in California. Like, who is she? Why is she in everyone's videos? So there was a lot circulating around that. And then I was blocked by a few people or I was talked about, and in my mind I'm like, what did I do? Like what's happening? Like what's wrong with me? But having the form and having like then I can just regulate myself instead of like having lots of bad thoughts. I can just think, well, maybe they are going through something, or maybe they don't have a family to talk about their feelings with, or they keep it inside so they have to put it on other people. That like if they see that I'm happy, they want to take my happiness away because they're not happy. So I think
Yeah.
I learned that from being able to talk about my feelings. And I can't change anyone or put the emotions on them, but I know that it changed me, and I think it could change a lot of other people.
So would you say that you had like more empathy and understanding for people that are struggling in their life and like, or maybe also observing how people are ineffectively communicating their feelings?
Yes, I love watching people like do their day-to-day life stuff because I think it's so interesting that there's so many other people doing things that I'm not doing. So when I see like, oh, this person is doing this, I'm like, if only they knew how to tell them how they it made them feel, then you don't have to start a gossip circle and then everyone wants to talk about it. So it's like it doesn't have to go through 20 different people, it can just be one-on-one.
How do you think that would change or impact people's relationships? Or don't you think people like love drama and want that drama? Or do you think like it would cause less heartache and less stress for people's lives?
Yeah, it would. I mean, drama is fun to like listen to, but when it gets to a point, like when it gets to a point where like people are really hurt and don't want to wake up in the morning and don't want to get out of their bed, people don't even realize what they're going through. So if you have someone to talk to, or just like talking to yourself about how it makes you feel or how it made them feel, you get more like closure. It's like if I'm getting bullied and I think like, wow, they must have like a really difficult life for them to have so much hate on their heart, because not like you're not born bad, you're not born with an evil heart, but you become so upset and so sad and just builds up over time where you just want to hate everyone that is happy because that's not what you have. So like a lot
Yeah.
of people, if they don't have it, they want it. They want what they don't
Hmm.
have. So if there's happiness, they want it, but they can't have it. So I feel like talking about your feelings and looking at someone else's perspective in a different way, like, oh, why would they do something like this? Why would they do something like that? Then you have a better understanding on why they're doing that.
Before you learned the EMC process, Was there times where it was really difficult for you to express your feelings because you didn't quite understand what was going on with you, or you felt maybe ashamed, and then that became progressively more difficult for you? And then did you see the difference when you started using the process, even if it was difficult to understand how to express your feelings, just getting that off like made it like lighter or easier for you?
Yeah, for the first like 3 years or longer of me talking about my feelings, it was horrible. I hated every second of it. Could not speak about my feelings. I would scream and do very ineffective ways of reaching for connection. But once you get past the point where it's like this actually works, then you realize like even though saying like the thing is when you say like people assume that something's wrong with you, but talking about your feelings, there's nothing wrong with that because everyone needs to talk about their feelings. So once I got past the point, like even I tell people like, oh yeah, like I talk about my feelings like every day. We have a forum and we sit down at the dinner table and we say our feelings. They're like, what the heck? Like, what's wrong? Like you had anger issues when you were a kid? I'm like, no, it's just normal that you talk about your feelings because if you keep it in, then it's gonna get worse. And then you don't have good relationships. So I feel like it's yeah.
I love it.
As you were sharing your experience, Ellie, I worked today with the CEO, and they had a meeting which was very, I would say, a lot of emotions were happening in the room. As he was using the process, and I walked him through his triggers and raw spots and emotions. And then he started to identify his surface emotions and then softer emotions and then primary. He couldn't believe that he felt all of these emotions. So one of the things that people are not really realizing that there's so many emotions that we feel in the moment of disconnection or in the moment of hurt and feeling this helplessness when the arguments happen. You just don't know what to do. And his worst thing was he was so embarrassed by not knowing how to stop the argument that was happening during the board meeting. And he felt like he was inequipped to know how to slow things down. And we talk about the importance of learning to slow things down because emotions are so fast. So how have you learned to slow things down for yourself and for others?
Yeah, well, slowing it down, like the sound of it is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sitting here for 2 hours and having to talk about it. It takes so long. But actually, like slowing it down doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go super slow through the process. There's just certain parts where you can understand better if you really listen. So, like, under all the anger and everyone, when we have disconnections, usually it's I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm so mad, but under that, in the primary emotions, there's shame, fear, sadness, and surprise.
Right.
None of those are anger. So usually anger relates to sadness. And I feel like when we slow it down, then even you, like when I say I'm so mad, then I'm like, wait, that's not like like the surface emotions is, oh, angry, upset, frustrated, irritated, annoyed, like that kind of stuff. But when you really think about it and slow it down, like, oh, why were you angry? What happened to you when you got angry? You're like, oh, wow, I actually was sad. And you correlate anger with sadness because when you're sad, you have nothing, you don't know how to express it. So you just use anger to express your sadness. So I think slowing it down really helps you and the person that you're trying to tell because then you may have thought you felt something, but you actually felt something different. And then it helps everyone understand better.
So when people, like you said so wonderfully, is that when you can understand your own feelings, what happens is it becomes less overwhelming for you. You can feel in balance and others can sense that balance.
I love this. Yeah. So it's like so nice to hear that you have such depth in your understanding of emotions and also how to express yourself because most adults, even the ones that we get on here in our podcast, we are, and it's not, of course, not their fault, but we are in a society that doesn't really encourage communicating, especially in the workplace, with our emotions and even in relationships. And we saw it yesterday when you had a call with someone that was very important to you. And, so even though they learned partly how to use the emotional process, they like went so quickly back to what society teaches us, which is ineffective ways of communicating and connecting. The last thing we want to ask you here, Ellie, today is if you could give some advice, or you can give some, for anyone listening, we have a lot of people listening that are in the workplace, but they have children and they want to give their children some the tools to help them feel confident and help them feel equipped to handle difficult conversations and situations. What advice would you give our listeners?
Yeah, well, I always think that going past the point of talking about your feelings is bad. Once you get past that point, I think that everything is great. Life is so much to live for. There's so much to live for in life, and having a conflict can make you lose time in that life. And so I do also think that in the society, men and boys especially were taught not to talk about their feelings, and that's weak, and that's you're acting like a girl. But I think that's like the most important, because also guys have a lot of energy and a lot of like force when they come to conversations usually. And so I feel like when they learn how to think like, oh, actually the anger is sadness, then it's like helps the workplace and the home. Even like when my brothers are frustrated, I'm like, guys, it's not frustration. Like, what is it? Are you sad about something? Then they think they're like, actually, I'm sad. And then you guys can have a conversation. But when someone comes in with a lot of energy and force, then you can get scared, or you back down, or you don't want to have a relationship anymore. That's why people get divorced or break up or quit jobs. It's very difficult to live and work with someone when they can't share how they feel. And I feel like anywhere you work or anywhere you go, or even at a coffee shop, if a barista is taking my order and saying, has like an attitude, I'm like, oh, like, what is her problem? Like, why is she mad at me? But it's actually doesn't mean it's me. It's just like maybe she had a rough day, but it turned into anger, and then it affects every other customer that she gives drinks to. So I think that
Yeah, it's such a good
everyone
point.
everyone needs to talk about their feelings.
So awesome. And oh, wait, one more that I thought about while you were sharing. So the EMC process that we use on that form that you are so familiar with, there's 8 steps there. Do you have a favorite one? I know when we first started using the process, drawing an image or sharing the trigger point or your feelings, which one do you feel like is find most relieving? You find maybe it's the most challenging, but also gives you the most relief when you share that in one particular part of the process.
I think my least and my favorite part are the same, because it's very difficult for me to share, but I feel like it helps, and it lets the other person understand better. It's drawing an image, because you have to think outside of the box. It's not like, oh, it made me feel like my image is I was sad. It's not that. It's like, how did that actually make you feel in your body or in your mind? And so when you share that, it can be on a really deep level, or it can be on a surface level. And then it gives a different perspective, like stepping into their shoes on how it made them feel. So I think that's my favorite, and it works the best. But it's also my least favorite because it's so difficult to share that.
I'm so glad you said that about the image, because it's true. When we actually draw an image, we allow people, other people who are listening to us, get into our shoes on the level of that experience. For example, today when I was talking to the CEO, he said, it made me feel sad that I wasn't able to help people to communicate correctly. And I said, what is that image of sadness? He said, it's like I have a tear on my cheek, right? Another time, many years ago, when I was doing a process with another CEO, and he said, I felt sad. I said, what was that sadness? He said, it was like a lake full of tears. So right away, you can recognize and you can identify the depth of that helplessness, of that sadness when people describe the image.
Yeah, and I can give an example of my image, because I think I tend to make it super like very deep and emotional instead of like more surface. Like if I say that like I'm disconnected with Noah, my brother, and he's like, was betraying me, or I felt very hurt by what he did. It's like I fell into a hole and he has a rope next to him and he's at the top of the hole and I'm like, Noah, help me get out. Let me help get out. And he's like, I'm trying, Ellie. I promise I'm trying. But then there's a rope and a ladder next to him, but he won't put it down to help me. So I feel like there's so many, like, just because I said I was hurt, I can make it this whole story. And then he's like, wow, I didn't even know that. And then it helps, yeah, understand, like, even if I say I'm sad, it doesn't necessarily have to be like I'm crying in tears. It could be like I just fell off of a cliff and I'm laying there and I'm dying and nobody and everyone's watching and nobody's there to help. That's also sad. So there's like a bunch of different there's a thousands and millions and billions of stories that you can have when you're drawing an image.
Definitely. I mean, just hits you in your heart when you hear such thing, and actually creates more empathy. Like Polina, you were saying that it creates more empathy toward the other person, and it touches human connection within you, that you suddenly see this person where people see each other as co-workers. They see each other as human beings. And that is, I think, transformational for people.
Well, Ellie, thank you very much for joining us today. We're so grateful that you had the time for us for this podcast. And thank you for everyone who's listening. This is the Leader in You podcast brought to you by EMC Leaders. My name is Polina, and I co-host this amazing podcast with Dr. Lola. Thank you for watching, and for more information on the process and how you can get educated and become a subject matter expert, please visit us on the website emcleaders.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye!
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.